Max Edmondson then gets the pole position in race number 1 of the season, and the build-up to race 1 now begins, and what a fascinating championship it's going to be this. There are the field of drivers lining up on the grid. We're a minute or so away from the start of this first race of the season. I don't know about you, Jack, but I'm ready for this. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a big grid, isn't it? It's full of talent, and I think we mentioned the top 10 separated by less than a second, which is usual on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit. In fact, it's probably expected on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, but on the GP, that's pretty unheard of. It's a long circuit, it's tricky, it's committed, you need the car in the right place, like Max Edmondson said. So there is a lot of very, very quick times. Race pace will be completely different. I was interested to hear Max saying about the tyre on the front left. We expect that to go away from the drivers, but it sounds like it's going to go away very quickly. So it might be a case of fastest lap is put in within the first 3 laps, and then it's just a case of drivers trying to manage their way through the race and seeing what opportunities they can find, you know, later down the line when people start making mistakes. But a lot to think about, Andy. I can't wait for it.
Either. Here we go then. Max Edmondson has the pole position. Scott Bugner alongside him. That is your front row of the grid. Bugner, of course, carrying a bit of ballast in that handicap system that we spoke about earlier on, based upon driver data collected by the VRRC from this year. So those that have had a bit more success, that have shown a bit more speed, they carry a bit more ballast. And might that have an effect in the race? Let's find out then. The lights go out. We're away in racing, and Edmondson gets a good start from pole position. Slotting into second is Bugner. Immediately, though, peeks to the outside line to try and challenge for the race lead. It won't work, though. Will Redford is there in third position. They go single file out of Paddock Hill Bend, and amazingly, they all come out the other side pretty much in one piece, I reckon. Bugner again challenges to the outside at Druids. There is no way through, though. Edmondson is not going to open that door if he can help it. They drop down the hill into Graham Hill Bend, and so far, so good for the pole sitter.
Yeah, Will Redford actually looked very interested in trying to go around the outside of Scott Bugner, which was never going to happen through Graham Hill Bend, but just trying to put him offline and ruin his run maybe towards 30s. A little bit of contact in the background there. Mick Sutton was the receiving driver. I'm not sure who was the culprit. It might have been Andy Dorman, who's now getting overtaken by Josh Martin, a name who is synonymous with sim racing these days. Works very hard at SimGrid, as well as a whole host of other businesses involved in the sim world. Here comes Will Redford, and it's going to be a very, very committed and brave move here, Andy, as they go down towards the GP circuit, and I think Max Bird looks interested in trying to take advantage.
Yeah, this is what we see so often on the GP circuit at Brands Hatch. As soon as one driver starts to defend, it costs you so much momentum and allows the rest of the field behind to stack up on your rear bumper. We're seeing the same sort of thing here in the midfield. Chris Shepherd there on the inside of Elliot Dalton Ayres gets sideways, and we've got our first casualty, I'm afraid. Off into the barriers goes Brad Smith, and how on earth did they all miss him as he spanked off one barrier back across the road into another, and that could have been an awful lot worse. So Smith drops down towards the tail end of the field. They're still getting sideways. This is the fight for second place. Look at this. You could throw a pocket handkerchief across the lot of them. Across the line goes Max Edmondson. He is almost 2 seconds clear of this. Second place is Bugner. 3 wide for third. On the inside line is Max Bird. He's sideways over the curb. He's into the side of Redford, who also gets sideways. And Jordan Brennan, you can almost bet your house on the fact that he will find the right place to be at the right time, and he picks up the pieces to go third.
I don't know how they haven't just absolutely flown into the old paddock there at Brands Hatch. That's absolutely sensational driving. It's like they were watching the drifts on Monday instead of focusing on their own racing. Eric Axelson trying to take care of the business on Will Redford, who's been absolutely mugged here. As Carl Belvis, obviously a protagonist in the championship in the Cayman Cup, who's that sending it right up the inside, I think a little bit ambitiously, and I think it was Mick Sutton going very close to the inside, trying to make it 4 wide through 30s. Probably a little bit ambitious, probably some might say a little bit foolish, but it's ended up every car pointing in the right direction. And in fact, he's made up a place or two, so that was absolutely brilliant. But Will Redford just dropping like a stone thanks to one move at Paddock Hill Bend. Astonishing stuff.
Ooh, someone's off. That might be Andy Carroll. Yeah, I think it is Andy Carroll that off the barriers at Hawthorne. Rejoins though, the car seemingly relatively undamaged. Yeah, you've got a feel for Will Redford because he looked quicker than Buckner, didn't he? That's sort of what triggered all of that. He was attacking Buckner for second, and it just didn't quite work. He ended up getting tagged by Max Bird at paddock, and although they all did well to save the cars, as you said, it did lose in momentum, and once you lose momentum in this category, you are going to drop like a rock through the order. Right, down towards clearways for the end of lap 2. Edmondson is gone. Scott Buckner now starting to breathe a bit more in second place as well. So Jordan Brennan in third. That's where the first battle is. Here is another one, though. This is Mark Redford going up the inside line here then. Oh, no, sorry, that'll be Buki up the inside of him, won't it? So Mark Redford on the outside. Dave Buki, race winner, former champion in real world Civic Cup racing, tries to get up the inside of 2 cars at once. And, well, it works. I don't think he had any right to pull that off because he had it all crossed up himself. But as one car goes off, he ends up got 2 places there, does Dave Buki, who, as we know, it's the Dave Buki way. He's getting stuck in, and so far, it's all sticking for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say it, but there looked like there may have been a slight bit of contact there, but we didn't quite see with our camera, so we'll let the stewards decide that, and we'll just say well done to Dave Buki for getting through 2 drivers in 1 corner. Chris Shepherd. Now, this is uncharacteristically low down for him, Andy, isn't it? I mean, sometimes we see a fantastic drive by Chris Shepherd where he can't be beaten, in essence, and he's absolutely demolishing the rest of the field. And then sometimes he's just sort of labouring outside the top 10 or around the top 10 battles, which, as I said, is a little bit unlike him, I have to say. Carl Felvers, though, a driver who's right at the front of the field for the Cayman Cup, maybe hasn't quite had enough practice for this one. Maybe isn't actually that accustomed to front-wheel drive. But he's at the moment fighting for top 5, which is still good. As Jordan Brennan goes very wide, this is for 4th place. He gets back on the circuit as Joel Lask gets past him. I don't think there was any contact there through, I think that Sheen curve, but it ended up drivers still in the race, which is what we want to see. This is, you don't know where to look, Andy. They're still making moves through Clark Curve.
Oh, contact. That's Redford into Felvers. Felvers gets sideways. He's in the gravel trap coming through Clark Curve, and he's going to rejoin. Oh, dear. Right in front of Elliot Dalton and Chris Shepherd. That almost went horrifically wrong, and Carl Felvers suddenly finds himself out of the top 10. I mean, this really goes to prove your point here, Jack, as just how competitive this field is. You have a moment like that from inside the top half dozen or so, and you're going to plummet down the order. Maybe 5, 6, maybe more places could be lost just through one misstep. Now, that wasn't necessarily Felvers' fault, but either way, he falls down from 6th position all the way down to 13th place. Now, Mick Sutton moves up to challenge Will Redford for 6th position. This is all starting to get very busy indeed. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th places together. Redford, Sutton, Martin, Axelson and Dorman. And that's a big dive up the inside for Mick Sutton. It looked like it was going to work. But then again, that momentum, Jack, you can't go in on that tighter line and expect to carry the momentum off the corner. And now it's actually Sutton under pressure heading down Pilgrim's Drop.
Yeah, he tried it earlier on, didn't he, as he went up the inside of Surtees, but that only worked because they were already 3 wide and already slowing each other up. If you're going 1 versus 1, it's not always necessarily going to work as they go through Hawthorns 2 wide, which doesn't normally work either. But Eric Dalton-Ayres, and I believe that's Chris Shepherd just ahead of him, did make it work. Mick Sutton has gotten ahead of Will Redford, who's obviously in brackets trying to recover somewhat and going through 2 wide through there is no limit of where these drivers won't go 2 wide at this point here at Brands Hatch. This is very, very dicey maneuvers from some of them, but as I said, luckily most of them are facing in the right direction. I know we have Rich Hayden here trying to keep an eye on driving standards. At the moment, it's a bit touch and go, I would say, but it's making very entertaining viewing for us all. Andy Dorman on Josh Martin. Andy, very experienced with the VRRC, trying to hold off Josh at the moment.
Yes, as they make their way down the start-finish straight. Looks like he'll succeed in doing that for now. Now, HFT teammates at play here. Carl Felvers getting back ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres after Felvers is off at clearways a lap ago. So he's only picked up 1 more position since then. More door banging now at Druid's Corner. That's Jordan Brennan on the outside line. Max Bird was in 3rd position. Of course, Brennan was 3rd before all of that. And now it's Joel Lask into P3. So all 3 of these drivers in shot have had a stint in third place at one point or another. It's Lask that has it now. Here comes Bird back up the inside of Jordan Brennan. It's overtaking wherever you look, and unfortunately we can't look at all of it. There's simply too much action going on. But it's not just overtaking, Jack, it's passing and then repassing, and that's really nice to see. Sometimes when a driver gets overtaken, they don't then have the pace or the potential to fight back. That is absolutely not the case. You can see here Bird was ahead of Brennan, and at the very next corner, Brennan back up the inside, trying to reclaim fourth place.
I'll tell you what it is. Oh, a little bit of contact. I thought I was going to have to get very excited then. It's a little bit uncharacteristic from a race one, isn't it? Normally we see qualifying and basically everybody goes around in a bit of a procession, and that's done and dusted because it's settled based on pace in qualifying. And then race two is when we normally see all this action with the reverse grid, obviously. But right now they're giving us a right treat, aren't they? Mick Sutton. To be honest, I can't remember where he started on the grid. I would love to know, because I swear he's probably one of the drivers that's gained the most amount since the start of this race. And he's just been doing it by dive bombing everyone by the looks of it. Max Bird getting very wide through Clark Curve. That is the definition of using all the track and then some, just to keep his car on the circuit and keep it pointed in a straight line. And as they go down towards Paddock Hill, you can see Mick Sutton maybe going a slightly offline, trying to fill the mirrors of Jordan Brennan, who is very, very experienced, very quick, very used to running at the front. He won't be phased at all as he looks up the inside of Max Bird. But again, these two real-life racers going hammer and tongs on it on the sim world. This is fantastic stuff.
This is some of the best racing I've ever seen on the VRRC, and I've seen some pretty good racing on the VRRC over the last few months. This is absolutely fantastic. Mick Sutton, to answer your question, started 9th, so I think he actually lost some places at the start and now has fought his way back up. Oh, sideways for Max Bird now. Brennan's out wide as well, and Mick Sutton's progress towards the front is going to continue here because he's banging into the side of Jordan Brennan's Honda Civic as they go over the hill, down Pilgrim's Drop. That's the outside line. They're being caught here by Will Redford as well, so this is soon to be a four-way fight for fourth position. It's Max Bird in fourth, Jordan Brennan in fifth, Mick Sutton in sixth, Will Redford right there with them now in seventh place. They're allowing Joel Lask to escape slightly up the road, but what terrific racing this is, and we're not even halfway yet.
Oh, crikey, I don't think my voice can take another over 10 minutes of this, but I'm all here for it. I'm looking forward to it. Jordan Brennan, we know how wily he is. He's trying to throw everything at Max Bird, isn't he? And Bird just isn't shifting whatsoever. I wouldn't say he's the cork in the bottle either, because like you said, Andy, as soon as one driver overtakes, the other one can come straight back at them, which is what we love to see. Really close competitive racing here in any series, but particularly, obviously, the Civic Cup really does make a show of it, shall we say. And they do get that little advantage of a little bit of slipstream here at Brands Hatch. Not enough to sort of cause really easy overtakes, but just enough to give them a little bit of a whiff at an opportunity. As Max Bird goes defensive into Paddock Hill Bend, Jordan Brennan trying to get that normal racing line, but misses the apex by just a touch. Mick Sutton having to go defensive on a recovering Will Redford, who goes around the outside at Druids here. Can he get the momentum in the front wheel drive? You can get really early on the power to be on the inside for Graham Hill Bend. There's door banging, forcing off the circuit there was Mick Sutton on Will Redford as he tried to get the cut back through Graham Hill. No. There's contact. That's exactly what we didn't want to see. Will Redford slams the brakes on. That's exactly what he should do so he doesn't career into anybody. But that was on the precipice of being fantastic action, but just a bit too much contact.
Yes, we'll let the stewards make the final call on that, but I don't think there's much more Will Redford could have done there. He was clearly alongside to the outside of Druids, got put on the grass, and then he made the move coming out of Graham Hill Bend. He was hit sideways and then hit 2 or 3 more times whilst he was already trying to gather that one together. So I don't think Will Redford is going to be terribly happy with the way that all transpired. Right, you'd think the fight for 21st and 22nd or 22nd and 23rd place would be a bit more sedate, wouldn't you? But anything but. Brad Smith here recovering back through the order. You can see the damage to the front of his Honda Civic, but the damage to the rear as well after his off into the barriers. Earlier in the race coming out of Sheen Curve, wasn't it? He's still fighting on, though. He's on the outside line, and he's all over the grass, in fact. That is Paul Laramie that he's... it's Brunning that he's fighting with, and these two have traded places at least 2 or 3 times on this lap alone. So wherever you look in the order, there are fights to be had, and that's really important, actually, Jack, because it's very easy for us as commentators to get very wrapped up in the fighting at the front of the field. Down towards the tail of the order, we've got some slightly less experienced drivers, many of them perhaps making their first appearance here on the VRRC, and they still have someone to race with. You're not going to learn unless you've got anyone to race with on track, and it's really nice to see that they have exactly that.
Yeah, exactly, and as Eric Axel said, I think that was looking left and right. What the VRRC do fantastically well is offer up driver coaching, and they'll try and put people in these situations with an experienced driver. So Dave Marshall will jump out there on the sim with them, start putting drivers under a bit of pressure, practice overtaking, where you should overtake, where you should defend as well. So with any luck, drivers will learn a little bit quicker, as well as their experience here on the sim, whether it be at the back of the field or at the front of the field, which is, as I said, why the VRRC is so competitive and why it's one of the standout series to be with. Also, another reason is because you get fantastic drivers driving like this, and Max Bird, Jordan Brennan are pretty much super glued to the back of one another. As Dalton Ayres, put it that way, is up the inside of Chris Shepherd at the Hawthorns. Little bit of a late lunge there, which is something you don't necessarily want to see out your rear view mirror going into Hawthorns, is it? As we go through Westfield, nicely taking and clipping that inside curb, and basically taking exactly the same line here as Dalton Ayres follows the driver in front, just trying to work out where he can get the better run, and he takes a nice bit of curb at the inside of Sheen. What can he do into Sterling? Changes down the gear, a little bit of contact, maybe so, but Chris Shepherd keeps his foot in. And another reason why front-wheel drive cars are so popular in racing is because a little bit of contact doesn't put the drivers off just as much as they did, say, in the Cayman Cup. Carl Felvers getting stuck in as well, around the outside of Clark Curve. He could have two positions in two corners.
Yeah, well, he went to the right of his teammate Elliot Dalton Ayres, who had repassed Felvers actually over the last lap or so, and then somehow by the time they got to clearways, he was to the left of Chris Shepherd. I'm not quite sure how he did that. He's got his nose ahead into Paddock Hill Bend. That's the outside line, but I don't think that's going to deter Kyle Felvers or paint traded on the exit of the corner, and they still run side by side up Hillwood Hill and into Druids Corner. Shepherd is out wide on the brakes, just nuzzles into the side of Felvers, and he's in a HFT sandwich here, isn't he? Because on his inside is Felvers, to his outside look Dalton Ayres. Now Dalton Ayres cuts back to the inside, gives him the hip and shoulder. Out onto the grass goes Chris Shepherd. You could see that coming a mile off. He was never going to survive that HFT encounter without a bit of panel damage. But look at that, shoots straight back up the inside line, gets back ahead of Elliot Dalton Ayres, and now Dave Buki joins in as well. This is terrific racing. All of this happening, by the way, for 10th place.
I think Elliot Dalton Ayres maybe made that a little bit easy because he felt a bit bad about how the way he took that Graham Hill bend and took the position in the first place. But we'll wait and see. As you mentioned, is that Dave? No, it's Will Redford actually, isn't it? Throwing his weight around now, trying to recover again for the second time in 20 minutes, and again trying to get himself into the top 10 would be a good result with all the contact that he has had to suffer throughout this race. So at the moment you're watching Carl Felvers in the newly liveried HFT, Will Redford in the Kinetic, Chris Shepherd, and then Elliot Dalton Ayres, who might be needing some Elliot Dalton spares at this point with his car being bashed around as much as it has done. There is Dave Buki with Mark Redford just behind this little battle. If they play their cards right for the next 4 minutes, they will actually catch up this battle for the top 10.
Not if Dave Buki keeps going rally crossing, which he just did at Sheen Curve. He was a long way off the road. I'd spotted in the background, but knowing Dave, probably didn't lift off the throttle one little bit. Right, disappointingly, only 4.25 minutes left in this enthralling opening round of the Maximum Networks Civic Cup here on the VRRC. Max Edmondson continues to lead. I knew he shouldn't have cut away from this battle. Sideways there goes, that was Felvers, wasn't it, who is up and down like the proverbial yo-yo here. Chris Shepherd now goes back to the front of this group in 10th position, with Redford on the outside now. Felvers in the first of those yellow and turquoisey coloured HFT racing cars, trying to get to the inside. That's the outside for Graham Hill Bend, but watch for the switchback. He'll take the wide line in, the tight line out. He doesn't run wide over the curbs, tries to get his nose up the inside of Will Redford's number 42 machine down towards Surtees Corner, but Will on the outside line should carry the momentum off the turn and hang on to 11th place for the time being. I was about to say, before that all kicked off again, that Scott Buckner had got the gap down to Max Edmondson to just about under a second a few laps ago, but now, as you can see, it's going back out again. So I reckon Edmondson Jack might just have been doing what I suggested in his pre-race interview, maybe just managing the tyres through that middle phase of the race, and now he's starting to assert his authority again.
Yeah, however, these guys aren't worrying about tyres at all, are they? In fact, they've probably forgotten all about them as Redford slots his way up the inside of Chris Shepherd. At Westfield, that puts then Chris Shepherd off of the line. That gives Carl Felvers an opportunity to go through. Elliot Dalton Ayres going on the inside of Sheen Curve as well, as they're heading towards Sterling. Felvers all over the back of Redford. Shepherd going defensive. Anywhere you look right now on screen, there's something happening, and Carl Felvis is giving me exactly that sort of feeling that actually Mick Sutton and Josh Martin, Martin up ahead for battle for 7th is also getting nice and close. You can't call this one, Andy, can you? Because this is absolutely fantastic work. In fact, sorry, it wasn't Mick Sutton, it was Eric Axelson and Josh Martin. So anywhere you look right now, there is some kind of action probably happening to your favourite drivers. So if this isn't worth a like and a subscribe and a tune in next week, I don't know what is. As Axelson gets his elbows out, something we don't often see him doing, and makes his way up the inside of the driver in front at Druids.
Yeah, but then as we've seen so many times, the inside at Druids becomes the outside at Graham Hill Bend, and so that allows Martin to fight right back, get back through on the inside line. He's now defending the inside down towards Surtees as well to try and prevent another attack from Eric Axelson, who I sense is getting a bit frustrated here in that green number 75 car. I reckon he's a bit quicker maybe than Martin, but just can't quite find a way through. Right, side by side again here between Chris Shepherd and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who are getting very familiar with each other at that part of the circuit. More wing mirror bashing going on down the hill, and it's starting to get a bit too feisty, this. Chris Shepherd trying to move over on Dalton-Ayres, who's got the inside line for Hawthorn, and for the time being at least goes back through into 11th place. Shepherd, though, ducks back in line, immediately has to watch his mirrors again because Kyle Felvis is there to the inside at Westfield Corner. That's a brave place to try and make a move. It rarely works on the inside, actually, because again, you lose that speed, that momentum down the hill through Dingledale up towards Sheen Curve. Up the inside looks Mark Redford, can't quite make the move stick. And for the time being, they remain in single file order through Stirling's Corner, down towards Clearways and Clark Curve for, annoyingly, the final time. It's one of those races you really don't want to end. Max Edmondson, I'm sure, is enjoying himself. He's got a 2.3 second cushion over Scott Bugner at the front of the field. Joel Laskin third. All of the action, really, Jack, has been behind them.
It absolutely has, and actually I'm just looking at my track map. I think Edmondson has maybe just lost a little bit of time through the first corner potentially, because it looks like Bugner is almost getting a little bit closer to him than we expected, but we'll ignore them for the time being as Axelson goes to the outside of Druids. Is he trying to get a late cut back to try and overtake Josh Martin? It's not going to work just yet, but maybe he's trying to set up a move later in this lap as Mark Redford lunges up the inside of Chris Shepherd. And who has gotten away? It's Elliot Dalton-Ayres who's gotten away. So Carl Felvis is the HFT car that's now going side by side with Mark Redford after going side by side multiple times with Will Redford. Chris Shepherd hasn't been able to make any kind of impact going forward. He just seems to be keep getting mugged in these battles and seems to be just getting stuck somewhat, as he was stuck right there. And is that Mark Redford? I think he's just got all the way around the outside. That's sensational stuff.
You're right, he has. He's into 13th again now, ahead of Chris Shepherd, who a lap ago was at the front of this group, and now he's right at the back of it. I noticed as well Andy Carroll has recovered his way back ahead of Dave Buki now. That's for 15th position. Don't forget, race 2 features a full reversed grid, so whoever finishes last in this race starts on pole for race number 2. So Max Edmondson's going to be right at the back of the field, and some of these drivers will get their moment in the spotlight. Mark Hughes there going around the outside of Jones through Hawthorn. That's for 18th place, but actually that will become a top 6 grid position for race 2. Max Edmondson, though, wins the opening round of the Maximum Networks Civic Cup here at Brands Hatch. Scott Bugner comes home in 2nd position. Brilliant drive from those two. Joel Lask, likewise, a fighting drive in the early stages to get into 3rd place, and then he managed to pull away from Max Bird 4th, Jordan Brennan 5th, 6th position for Dorman. 7th place then is Mick Sutton, with Martin in 8th, Axelson 9th, and Will Redford in 10th position. The rest of them going through, they're 3 wide further back. That was Chris Shepherd, Andy Carroll and Dave Buki. So Shepherd lost even more ground in the end, held on to 14th place, just ahead of Carroll and Buki. But Chris Shepherd not having quite the race that he would have hoped for. Well, some brilliant performances in that one. We will, by the end of the night, have to try and sort out who we think is the driver of the round. We might need some help with that, Jack, so I do encourage anyone in the YouTube comments section to tell us, from that race at least, who you think your pick for driver of the race was, because there were quite a few impressive performances there.
Yeah, you can basically roll a 25-sided dice, couldn't you, and land on anybody, and you'd be in with a good shout. We do have to go to a very quick advert. We'll be hoping to speak to the top 3 drivers from that race straight after this.
Well, as season openers go, that was right up there with the best, I think. The first round of the Maximum Networks Civic Cup is in the books, and what a race it was. The stat sheets will tell us that Max Edmondson won it fairly comfortably. That doesn't really do that race justice. That was sensational stuff. Some of the going through the field was some of the best we've seen here on the VRRC for a long, long time. As I said, though, race winner Max Edmondson didn't actually have to trouble himself with any of that side-by-side battling, because once he got into turn one as the race leader at the start, he started immediately to build a bit of a gap, and Max is here now to tell us all about his race. Max started from pole position, led every lap of the race, 2-point-something second margin at the end. That was as close to a perfect start to the season as you can get.
Yeah, didn't make it the easiest because I ran wide at turn one and last corner quite a lot, but I had like a 4-second gap and lost like 3 of them seconds to run it off, but yeah, it wasn't a bad race to be fair.
Yeah, well, we didn't spot any of that, so you could have got away with that, actually. We were too busy following the manic battling going on behind you, but we did notice at the start that you were under quite a bit of pressure, actually. Scott was asking some real questions of you there, so I guess those early laps were a little bit nervy.
Yeah, first 2 laps I was just trying to go for the fastest lap, as I said, after quali, and I pushed it a bit too hard and lost like 1.5 seconds at the last corner, and then the pressure did start to pile on a bit because Scott was like less than 2 seconds behind me.
But you managed to keep him at arm's length. Race 2, though, I feel is not going to be quite as straightforward, is it? A full reversed grid. We've just seen how chaotic it gets in the midfield, so the game plan here, is there a game plan for this reverse grid race?
Sort of. First 3 laps, I think, is my advantage because obviously the tyres, and then after that, I think it's anyone's ball to play with because everyone's tyres will be gone after lap 3 or 4.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how it pans out, but Max, for the time being, huge congratulations on that race victory. Best of luck for race 2.
Thank you.
Well, we mentioned there Scott Bugner, who was chasing him hard in the early stages, and Jack can now catch up with our runner-up finisher.
Yeah, Scott, I don't want to sound condescending or insulting when I say this, but where on earth has this pace come from? You were in the academy a couple of months ago, and all of a sudden, bang, right at the front of the top tier VRRC.
Front-wheel drive, mate. That's what it is. Rear-wheel drive for me, I can't do it. I can't get the hang of it. But as soon as we said Civics, I was like, right, I'm in. We'll do it.
Well, it's clearly worked for you. That qualifying was ballistic. As we just asked, though, to Chris, it's a bit of a different ball game now, isn't it? Reverse grid, what's the plan?
Stay out of trouble for the first couple of laps. We know how chaotic it's going to be, and then just sort of try and pick them off one by one and go from there. Just try and score some solid points, really, and not have a bad race.
Okie dokie. And very last question, has that changed, that last race, coming second and being so quick, changed your perspective of the championship? Have your aims changed at all?
Be in it to win it, and I think I've got the pace to keep with Max. I think I was just a bit cautious, but he had it under control, but I think we've got a bit more in the bag.
Cracking. Thanks very much, Scott. We'll let you get going to get ready for race 2.
Thank you.
Scott Bugner, even, finishing in second place. Third place went the way of Joel Lask. And Joel, I said during that race that I wasn't actually surprised to see you going quickly because you went well in the Touring Car Trophy. So are you another driver who perhaps favours front-wheel drive over rear?
Yeah, definitely. Front-wheel drive is my forte. I just couldn't get the hand of the Porsches. So, yeah, it's nice to be back in front-wheel drive cars again. Quite a tough race, though, must admit.
Yeah, you had a real battle in the early stages, didn't you, to break into that third place. You must have known it was important to make that progress early while you could.
Yeah, I got stuck behind the cars for a little while, and I knew by that point Scott and Max had made their way forward, so it was just a case of just keeping hold of the tyres. They started to go off towards the end.
Well, you managed that well. We'll let you go now because, as Jack said, race 2 isn't far away, but well done on third place.
Cheers, thank you.